Hi, everybody. Happy Monday, everyone. I'm going to have a little chat with someone who I think very highly of. His name is Alex Michelson, and he is an anchor from Fox 5 is Fox LA. I don't know if it's 5 or not. And hold on, where are you, Alex? There he is. I'm so sorry I've been late. I was running out of juice, and so I had to charge it real quickly. So Alex is coming. We're going to just talk a little bit about the election. Hi, Alex. How are
Uh,
you?
Good, Katie. How are you? Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh my God, are you kidding? I'm so excited to talk to you, Alex. There's so much to talk about. But first, so I think you should tell everyone who's joining us a little bit about how we know each other. You were
Okay.
my stalker from a very early age.
Yeah, I was going to start by saying something nice. That's one way to put it.
Well,
Yeah.
don't bother.
Thank you for so many of us inspiring so many of us to go into journalism. And I think me, like so many other people around the country, watched you growing up and thought, that's what I want to do with my life. And you were such an important figure to a lot of us. So thank you for everything that you've done to sort of pave the way. And thank you for all the work you've done as well on cancer research, which has been such an incredible thing and saved so many lives. So you're a huge inspiration to me. As a kid, I used to watch the Today Show every day. I even came to New York and stood outside with
I
the sign and all that stuff, which
I saw
was fun.
pictures on your stories, and they're so
Yeah,
funny with you outside on the plaza holding
yeah,
the sign, and really, really so cute. And you've got sort of pictures of us through the years, which I got such
yeah,
a kick out of. And now
yeah.
you've got a big job. As I said, you're the anchor. You're an anchor at in
It's
Fox LA, or at Fox LA,
yeah,
and you also do a weekly political show, and you feature one of my really good friends, Brian Goldsmith, a lot
yeah.
on that show. And you guys are real political junkies and policy wonks, which is so important. Especially, I mean, are you having a hard time in this current age of polarization, which I guess
Mm.
is the biggest word of not only 2020, but a lot? Are you having any challenges being objective and being a journalist when, a lot of people deride journalists and sort of the profession of journalism in general?
It's really hard because pretty much everything you say is going to be filtered through a lens. First off, when people even see an image of the politician that they disagree with, they don't even listen to a lot of what it said. They're just automatically going to be against that. And so, how do you create a place? I mean, what we try to do with our show, the issue is to actually feature both sides, because so much of the cable news model right now is built on not hearing the other side. It's
Right.
built on echo chambers, which make you feel better. But then people are not used to hearing the other side, which is what I think is going to be so interesting about this debate tomorrow. I mean, it may be the first time in a long time that potentially 100 million Americans will hear the other side unfiltered. You know, if you watch Fox, you usually get one set of facts. If you watch CNN or MSNBC, you get a different set of facts. And this will be both of them talking to each other without that filter for an extended period of time, which is so rare. I mean, you think about the days, when you started at the Today Show, there wasn't as much of the noise that was constantly around, and there was, I think, more time and more space for fact checking. Now, just people put stuff up on Twitter, and who knows if it's a respected news organization or some sort of Russian bot, but it can get the same attention.
But I also think that this president has brought it to the next level. I sometimes wonder what would the political environment be like if someone like Mitt Romney were president, or someone who didn't seem to sow the seeds of division and partisanship quite as radically, I guess, as this president. So I think that, his personality and style has certainly exacerbated a pre-existing chasm in this country, or an existing chasm. Uh, and it's worse than it has ever been as a result. And I'm just curious about, um, you know, before I talk to you about the debates, and this is sort of overlapping Alex, this is Alex Michelson, everyone. He's an anchor at Fox LA. So we thought we'd get kind of a sense about what's going on in California these days. But is this New York Times piece is it reverberating around the country? And tell me about California. What are people saying about it? Do you think it'll matter?
Does anything matter? it's the point. I mean, it's crazy that if you look at the president's poll numbers, have been basically the same the entire year, every single thing that happens. So I think we are hearing from a lot of the president's supporters. They think that, one, it was good that he was able to avoid taxes because they don't like taxes. And this does not seem to be the thing that's necessarily going to change people's minds. I think, like so much of what else we've seen over the course of this cycle, whether it be the Atlantic article or the Bob Woodward book or so many other things that have come out that may have sunk another president, I think the support for the president is so strong among his base that this is not going to be probably the thing that's going to take him down from there. The question, of course, is what about that small chunk of people who are undecided? What does this do to them? And also, what does it do to people? You know, I think the big question I have is there was a group of people that voted for President Obama that then voted for Donald Trump. They were people that didn't like Hillary Clinton, or maybe they were spooked by the James Comey thing at the very last minute. And they said, I'm gonna go with Trump. We're gonna give the middle finger to the establishment. We're gonna see what happens. The question is, do those people vote for Biden, or do those people not vote? And also, there I think was a percentage of people that thought either I couldn't vote for Hillary Clinton, that were Democrats for whatever reason, or thought maybe she was going to win and didn't come out because they were so confident with the polls. And does a larger share of those people actually come out? And we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with this mail-in voting situation too, which is we've never seen or poll tested anything quite like that, how that's going to interfere. You know, here in California, we're pretty used to mail-in voting. Before this, 60% of the people voted by mail last time around. It was already the most popular thing to do. And we have in this state voting over about a month. There's vote centers. And what's going to be interesting this time, the first time, because of the activism of these NBA guys, is that we're going to have vote centers at the Staples Center, at Dodger Stadium, at SoFi Stadium, at the Forum. So what's that going to look like, having these massive arenas open for a long time where you can drop off your ballot and vote by mail early? I mean, I think everybody's expecting, obviously, that Joe Biden is going to win the state of California. But California is so important in so many other ways, in that it's the leader in terms of fundraising, the leader in terms of activism for other states, and there's so many competitive congressional elections in California as well. This was a huge part of that blue wave in 2018. The
Right.
Seats in Orange County, Orange County, California, which used to be one of the most Republican counties in the entire country. This was Reagan country. Hillary Clinton won Orange County. She was the first Democrat to win Orange County, California since FDR.
Wow.
In the 1930s. And then in 2018, every single congressional district in Orange County turned blue. They all went from red to blue. So now there's a lot of those seats that are super competitive as well.
Well, let's talk. I mean, let's unpack some of this stuff. What do you expect from the debate? A lot of people who I know say they're going to be really nervous watching this debate.
Yeah.
And I interviewed Jen Palmieri, Director of Communications for the Hillary Clinton campaign. And I guess the second part of the question, do they really matter? I think most people would agree that Hillary Clinton kind of cleaned Donald Trump's clock and the debates in 2016. And it didn't seem to move the needle that much for her, but who knows? I mean, I think it was helpful, but then the positive effects seemed to kind of evaporate a little bit after the debates. And I think she told you, or Brian told me, that she wished there had been a fourth debate.
That wasn't to me, but it would be a great answer if it did happen with me. I wish. I'll claim credit for that. Very newsy. Yeah.
I mean, let me get back to the original question.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
what do you expect, and do you think it will really matter?
Well, there was this NBC News Wall Street Journal poll that came out today that showed that 70% of Americans said that the debates won't really matter to them, which is the highest number in the history of the debates. I think people, if you look at the polls, people are more interested in this election than any other election in our lifetime, and the poll numbers don't move more than any other election in our lifetime. People are more baked in. But I do think that it matters some, because anytime in this election, when you can get like 100 million people watching something at the same time, you have the potential to move things. And there will be more eyeballs on this debate, on this moment, than any other moment in the entire campaign. And I think most of the focus is going to be on Joe Biden right there. I mean, I think most people know what Donald Trump's going to do. He's going to come out there. He's going to be aggressive. He's probably going to say stuff about Hunter Biden and Beau Biden and talk about Tara Reade and try to get, Joe Biden off of his game. But we haven't seen that much of Joe Biden out there on the campaign trail. And what does he look like? He has made a career out of being a really nice guy, because I think you would agree he's a pretty nice guy, right? If you deal with him. But do people want to see the alpha? You think about Donald Trump, his whole life, he's always been the alpha, right? Even when he never had to be in the Senate, he never had to be in some city council job. He ran for president. He was an alpha male from the first debate. He's at the center of the stage taking on Megyn Kelly. The entire time, he always got to be just an alpha. America saw him as the apprentice boardroom guy, the big boss. And that's how people saw him. Joe Biden comes into politics in his 29, 30 years old, a young guy in the Senate. In the Senate, you got to be deferential. You got to talk to people. You got to make alliances. You got to be nice in order to make compromises and make things happen. And the main role that most Americans see Joe Biden in is being the vice president. And inherently in vice president, you're number two. You're the guy that's deferential. You're supportive. So most Americans don't have a lot of experience seeing Joe Biden as the guy in charge, as the main guy. And this is the first time that we'll get to see him in that job.
I guess, but on the other hand, he could be a pretty stark contrast stylistic to sort of Donald Trump's pugnacious, bombastic persona by kind of being calm and cool and having a great facility with facts and policy. So, I don't know. He was a great debater in the past. If we look back at 2008 when he was on the stage against Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, a lot of those reviews were how great Joe Biden did, like how great Chris Dodd did. It didn't help him in the polls. They didn't get out of Iowa, but it did impress Barack Obama so much that he named him as the VP. And then you think back to his debate against your BFF, Sarah Palin, and that, can I call you Joe? And he did pretty well in a pretty strange situation that was. It got a lot of TV attention, and he did pretty well against Paul Ryan too. I think there are a lot of Democrats that are worried, though. He has aged a few years since then. And what does that look like when you have that much pressure on you? I think a lot of people want to see. It's interesting, Alex. This is Alex Michaelson, everyone. If you're just joining us, Alex is an anchor on Fox LA and is a political analyst and host. We got 15,000 people asking us if there was going to be real-time fact checkers. And I think, I wish that could be the case. Maybe that would be a really helpful use of a bot one of these days. With us mere mortals, it's virtually impossible to do real-time fact checking, isn't it?
It is. And even for those of us that do this for a living and are focused on this stuff all the time. And it's unfair for somebody who doesn't do this for a living and is focused trying to take care of their family or do their full-time job. And it's overwhelming. And it'll be interesting to see what Chris Wallace does with that job, how much he has said that he doesn't see it necessarily as his job to play fact checker in real time. That's a hard thing. When you've done stuff like this, did you feel like it was your role to sort of and obviously Donald Trump creates more of a challenge than anybody else that has been up there, but did you feel it's your job to sort of interject, or do you feel like you shouldn't?
I do, but it's really, really tough to have all that information at the tip of your tongue that could just be that you could hit somebody right back with and say, wait a second. So I so Chris doesn't see that as his job, that he's armed with a lot of facts in various buckets, if you will, so he can correct. But remember, Candy Crowley
Right.
tried to do that at a past debate, and she was wrong. And then it was really, so it's a very, very nerve-wracking thing. I've never hosted a debate. I think it must be incredibly stressful to prepare for a debate. So I wish Chris all the best. And, a lot of people, I think a bunch of Democratic senators signed a petition because he's not talking about climate change, which does seem honestly like a huge omission to me, that he's not addressing that, and that he conflated Black Lives Matter protesters with violence, kind of in the view of some, kind of buying into the president's talking points about protests turning violent, which has been a very small percentage of the protests. So, listen, I feel bad for him because you can't please everyone, but
No.
I hope he asks about climate change, because as you know, in California, no, climate change did not cause the fire, but it actually fuels the fire through the conditions that result from hotter temperatures.
So we have 27 fires burning at the same time in California today. We had this year have our biggest fire in the history of the state. In the last 4 or 5 years, we've had the biggest 4 or 5 fires in the history of the state. The area that's burned this year is bigger than many states combined. And so the governor of California's point is that climate change is real, just come here and see it. So I actually got to be the pool reporter for California when President Trump came here to do that. And he gets off the plane, and I said to him exactly what you just said, which is it possible that it is both forest management, which is his big push, which means, raking, clearing the trees, getting rid of the dead trees, and climate change, that both things are making it? And he said to me, well, it's possible, but we really need forest management. And he went off on that. And then there was a moment later where he takes the media into this, what was supposed to be a private meeting with the governor. The governor did not want to have this be a big circus. The president said, I want to bring the media in, so I'm going to bring you in over his objections. And we go in there, and then they sort of hash it out. And one of the Secretary of Natural Resources from California, a guy named Wade Crowfoot, who most Americans had never heard of before this day, says to him, look, it's the science. Look at the science. And he said, well, it's going to get cooler. Just trust me. And it was interesting. The Newsom team right after that gave to me, which I tweeted out and became a huge thing, the briefing book that they gave to Trump. And it was 10 pages of pictures with infographics. And it did look a bit like a second grader's, book, with just like it's getting hot and showing the graphics of how it is. But the people in that world say that is how he learns. And so that was the briefing on California, basically 10 pages of pictures.
I don't know what to say to that. I'm moving, but the other thing I think that is going to come up inevitably, probably in the first 10 minutes, is the coronavirus pandemic, the administration's response. Can you just update us on what's going on in California with COVID-19 and how people are feeling about the administration's response?
Yeah, it's complicated. Do you think Joe Biden will wear a mask in the debate?
I think he'll walk out with his black mask,
and take it off. Yeah.
President Trump has used the no mask as a political statement. I think Joe Biden will use wearing a mask as a political statement as well. And I think therein lies the difference in many ways. But couldn't it be more different in those two conventions, right? Joe Biden with the mask, with people in their cars honking with the fireworks as compared to the president's thing. Yeah.
In terms of California and coronavirus, at the beginning of the process, the governor of California was the first to do a statewide lockdown, was really aggressive in trying to take care of this. And you saw the numbers reflect that. At the beginning, California was doing significantly better than the rest of the country. And then
I know him a bit. I know his wife, Jennifer. I was in a documentary she did many years ago called Misrepresentation. And I don't live in California. I think they're both really, really nice. I was so impressed with how well it was going for him and happy for him. So what happened?
Right. So his approval rating was at 83% in the early days of this, and then they started to open it up again. They felt like things were going well. Let's open it up, and then there was this big spike, and so then he had to make the really tough political call, which is let's shut it down again. So now you have from places that had spent months with no business, they spent a lot of money, restaurants, gyms, bars, other places to do all of the modifications, put up the plastic things, what I call the hockey rink, thing, and got everything in place. And then they're open for a couple weeks and then they're shut down. And that was really, really devastating for a lot of people. And so what he has said without saying, I mean, I've interviewed Jerry Brown and Arnold Schwarzenegger, who are two former governors of California, who are on a task force advising Governor Newsom on how to do this. And both of them said to me that we opened too fast. We didn't, 2020 hindsight, we were doing our best at the time, but we opened too fast. And Gavin Newsom hasn't explicitly said that, but he's basically hinted at the fact that last time we moved too quickly. So now we're going to have a very slow process of reopening, which they've actually starting to get the numbers on coronavirus under control, but then there's the financial fallout for taking it slowly. And there's so many businesses that are just devastated in the process and really angry. And now there's a fight between some of the counties who want to reopen, the more Republican counties, and then the governor's team in terms of trying to push back on that.
It's such a conundrum, Alex, because, you have to be sympathetic to all these businesses and all these small businesses and employees that are hurting so badly, and yet public health has to be a consideration too. So it's just such a difficult, needle to thread. And I think it's interesting that according to polls, Alex, most people say they trust Donald Trump more on the economy than Joe Biden. I'm curious why you think that's the case.
I think there's people see that he had a pretty good economic. I'm sorry, I need to get a new tripod for this phone. It's driving me crazy. I think they see that his first few years he was able to continue the Obama run, and I think I think there may be concern right now, Katie, that there may be too much government regulation, coronavirus and extension. That people don't feel like they've got enough space for their own businesses or their own jobs, and they're concerned that the government interference in some of this with some of these coronavirus things may be too much, and so they feel more comfortable that the president may be more apt to not regulate things as much and give them a little bit more freedom, and that people maybe don't want to pay taxes, which is why some of his supporters think good for him that he didn't pay taxes for all those years. If only I had as good of an accountant or tax attorney as he did. And so that is an area that he does seem to have more strength than anywhere else, but his lead on the economy numbers seem to be lessening too, as people see the fallout of it. I mean, I don't think the Obama-Biden team gets enough credit for a pretty extraordinary record when it comes to the economy.
Well,
I mean, they had job growth every month that they were in there.
and I was going to say a lot of the good news about the economy was actually spillover from policies in the Obama administration that
Right.
now Trump is taking credit for. So that's interesting too. But a lot of people think that Joe Biden has to take this opportunity to really send an economic message about what he is going to do, and not simply that he is the anti-Trump. And the decency argument probably can only take him so far. So what else is going on out there in California, Alex? What else? And we can answer some questions. Everybody be nice, because sometimes let's see. Oh, you know what? Someone said someone's making funny in quotes about Joe Biden and his mental faculties, which is something I think Donald Trump is really trying to promote. And Jen Palmieri said he's probably going to attack Joe Biden on this and try to get him off his game. And what is the thing about the drug testing? I read that. What is that? What is that
It
about?
does. That one I don't understand. And the Biden campaign responding today, that essentially he wants to make this debate. Joe Biden wants to use his words for the debate, and Donald Trump wants to use his urine, which makes sense because he's pissing away our COVID economy. That was literally the Biden campaign statement, which was odd. I don't know. I mean, here's the danger for what the Trump campaign is doing, which is turning Joe Biden into this doddering old man caricature, right? That's what they're trying to do, that he is too old, he's losing his mind, you can't trust him because he's losing it. Well, what happens if he comes out and he looks pretty sharp? All of a sudden, the month after month after month of them putting that up into people's minds, he can knock that whole argument down within the first 20, 30 minutes of the debate. And then that really hurts, I think, the Trump campaign that is trying to create something of him. And then they've already lost the expectation game in all of this, which could be really detrimental for them. But I do think that there are some Democrats, and I know you talked to a lot of them, that are concerned if Joe Biden can pull this off. I mean, debating Donald Trump is different than debating everybody else because he has no shame ever. Anything in his life. He doesn't play by the rules. He doesn't care about the rules. And Joe Biden is the kind of guy who has, usually kind of followed the rules and tried to be deferential and trying to be respectful. And that will be a contrast, and we'll see how that plays. In terms of go ahead.
Go ahead, sorry.
In terms of what else is happening in California, our biggest crisis before all this was homelessness. We had 150,000 homeless people in California on the streets of all of our major cities. And so all of this, the coronavirus and the people losing their jobs and the potential eviction crisis that's coming could only make that crisis potentially worse. And that could be a really terrible thing. And so you do see, a certain group of people that are moving out of the state now, especially with this ability to do telecommuting and work from home. Why live in San Francisco when the housing prices are this high if you can do the same job somewhere else and be in a house 6 times the size?
Yeah. And are people upset what that might mean to the tax base in California? The fact that people are hitting the road?
I mean, California's whole economy and government is based off of basically a boom and bust system that's all about how are the highest income people in California doing. So you end up with these giant surpluses in really good years, and then you end up with tremendous deficits. So we would go back and forth through this whole process. So Jerry Brown and Arnold Schwarzenegger and now Gavin tried to set up a system where there would be a rainy day fund. And they did. I mean, Jerry Brown left the state with a $25 billion rainy day fund. Mm-hmm. And they've gone through all of it already this year. I mean, they're going to space some of it out over the next few years in terms of when all the money gets released. But I mean, it shows you what we're in the showers now. I mean, it's a pretty bad rainy day all at the same time. And so there could be some real consequences to that. And that's the point that the governor here makes, and governors all over the country makes, is that state governments can't print money, right? The federal government can just print more money. And the Fed that's basically what they're doing, right? It's just like put out more money but state governments have to balance their budgets. And so they're forced to make choices that Congress itself doesn't have to make, because Congress can just operate in massive deficits, which is their answer for most things.
Before we go, I want to ask you about Kamala Harris. Obviously, she's, people are looking at her on a national level, but of course she was the Attorney General of California before she became the senator. What are the feelings? It's interesting to get a state's perspective on versus kind of as a national figure. And I know California is not monolithic, but what is the impression most Californians have of Kamala Harris?
I mean, her poll numbers here are not, I mean, look, it's a Democratic state, and I think most people are excited to see a Democrat from California. But her poll numbers are not through the roof here in California. I mean, there was real concern, I think, from the Kamala Harris campaign that she was going to lose this state embarrassingly bad. And I think that was part of the formulation of why she dropped out of the election when she did. I mean, poll numbers here when she was running for president had her, you know, fifth or sixth place. What's hard about a state like California as compared to other states, and we have 40 million people and 12 media markets. So although the folks in San Francisco know her pretty well because she's been and worked there for a long time, people in Los Angeles, you know, the second biggest market in the country, don't have that much personal experience with her. It's not like she's doing a lot of events here or FaceTime with people, or she's been around for so long. I mean, it takes longer than, you know, the time that she's been doing it in order to really break through in all those people. So she doesn't engage a tremendous amount with the local media. She has seen it as her strategy to try to cast herself as a national figure. And she's done a good job doing that, obviously, but she doesn't take the time to do local media availabilities that some of the other politicians here do. So I don't think people in both the local press and some of the sort of regular Californians that live here have the close relationship that they do with other figures. You know, she was only in the Senate for not that long a time before she ran for president, now running for vice president as well.
Yeah,
but will people support her? Yes, the state will vote for her in big numbers because she's on the Democratic ticket.
It's interesting that I don't know. I think part of the problem is media is so fragmented that you get the sense, well, where is everybody? But I think it's become much more niche in terms of media opportunities that the Biden campaign is taking advantage of, right? And I think because we all get our news and information in so many different places, you get the sense like, where are they? But there are probably a lot of smaller markets and in aggregate reaching a lot of people that way.
Right, exactly. I mean, it was interesting that Karen Bass, who was a congresswoman from Los Angeles, became a thing during the VP search. In fact, we had her on my political show, The Issue Is, and I said to her, has anybody reached out to you about the VP search? Are you being vetted? And she said, no. I'm like, would you want to be? She's like, yeah. And then the next couple of days later, they started vetting her. and then she became
responsible for
almost did it. Yeah. And so she became a real serious contender with like people like, everybody from Dolores Huerta to George Will to Marcos Militis, like backing the Karen Bass for VP campaign. And I think there was some opposition research dump that may have come from the Harris campaign. Who knows where that really did her in. But there was a series of politicians from California that know both Harris and Bass pretty well, that were pushing Karen Bass over Kamala Harris. There also were a series of politicians in California that came together that were pushing Kamala Harris. But it was interesting to see a bit of the divide there on that front. When you have a state this big and that's diverse, that's what happens.
Well, you're going to have to tell me what you think after the debate. You're going to have to text me and give me your views. I'll be live tweeting about it and just watching it along with everyone else. And there are 3 presidential debates, 1 vice presidential debate. I'm really interested in seeing Kamala Harris and Mike Pence going toe-to-toe because, stylistically, they're so different. She's quite fiery. He's sort of, I think, probably a little more introverted. And so that should be really interesting, don't you think? When is the vice presidential debate?
October 7th.
October 7th.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say milquetoast 1950s, but you
Alex, you're not supposed to say stuff like
that. No, they're different. They have different approaches, and I think it'll be really interesting to see which of those things do better. Yeah, no, I'm fascinated. What are your expectations for the debates, Katie? Because most people here care a lot more about you than they do about me. What do you think's going to happen in the debate tomorrow night?
You know what? Honestly, I do not know. I can't say I know. I think that that Trump will try a lot of head games. When he walked and kind of hovered over Hillary Clinton in one of those debates, I think he's going to try to use his height and his girth kind of to you know, kind of, there's going to be some body language stuff going on.
Right.
I don't know. Honestly, I wish that I was more insightful and told you what was going to happen. I think it's anybody's guess. I don't know what the approach is going to be. I just don't know. And people are making fun of the mother thing with Mike Pence. I agree with you, everyone. That is so friggin' weird. Mother.
You
And
mean
all,
John? You mean John doesn't call you mother?
no, that's sweet. No, and I'm not the mother of anything, you know, that he
Yeah.
has responsible for either. But
Yeah.
I think it's weird. And someone made a joke that, you know, he can't actually be in the presence of another woman without his wife, which is so. What was that show with Bill Paxton? Sister Wives. It's
Mm.
just it's just sort of creepy. And someone made a joke that he couldn't eat in a restaurant because Mrs. Butterworth was on the table. I thought that was,
He's
and
got a yeah. He's got a different vibe. And what's fascinating is, could he be more the opposite of Donald Trump?
no.
Right? I mean, the guy with three wives and with everything else that's gone on in his life and as well. And yeah. And then we didn't even talk about the taxes really and how, you know, the $70,000 for hairstyling.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that at all, but you were saying at the beginning of our conversation it wasn't going to have much of an impact on
Right.
which
Yeah. And then there's also and then the Supreme Court fight in the middle of all this too, which is so
about that.
which is so crazy too, and how that animates. I mean, I don't you think that will only animate people even more if people weren't already fired
Both,
up for the most fire, but both sides, right? And to
and
put
by
those issues in the middle of everything.
I know that John Oliver definitely follows a particular political persuasion, but his show last night and the topic, you've got to watch it because basically he takes issue with the Electoral College and kind of the system. And I didn't realize there's this whole group of states that are quietly trying to do a workaround for the Electoral College, pledging that their electors will actually vote for whoever is winning the popular vote nationally. And
Mm.
representing the voters of their states, or their state. And I thought that was so interesting. It's a really good episode kind of explaining the demographic and racial, you know, calculations of representation in this country and how Puerto Rico and DC doesn't have any representation and how two senators in every state, less populous ones. Anyway, it's really well done. I find John Oliver super funny and fun to watch.
Yeah, there is no state that's hurt more by the Electoral College. I mean, obviously, DC and Puerto Rico are the most hurt, but then California. I mean, you think about it.
He
Hillary Clinton won this state by 4 million votes. She won the popular vote by 3 million votes. So without California, Donald Trump would have won the popular vote. We're the biggest state in the country with the most amount of people, and yet no candidate will ever come here and campaign at all. We're completely shut out of the system entirely, which is so unfair
right.
and seems so wrong. And you know, for a moment during the primary, it was so nice because they moved our state up, so we got a little bit more attention during the primaries. Why is it fair that Wyoming, you know, with 300,000 people gets 2 people in the Senate, and us with 40 million people get 2 people in the Senate? That just doesn't seem right. But I don't know. Maybe I'm biased because I'm from here.
Well, definitely take a look at that episode because
Yeah.
I find it. I mean, John is really loaded for bear and quite passionate about what he's talking about. And I think it's very instructional wherever you stand politically. So someone just said I was like fine wine with aging. So thank you for that.
I definitely agree with that. Do you wish that you could use John's kind of language on TV? Would that be fun?
Well, yeah. Oh, my God. It's awesome. I mean, it's incredible. But I was thinking about that, you know, the F-bomb. It's become so much part of the lexicon. It actually sort of bums me out that language has gotten so coarse but I sound like I'm a Sunday school teacher, but I feel that way. But anyway, that's just a little thought from me. But Alex, thank you so much for talking with me and for talking to all the people who have been a part of this conversation. I really enjoyed it. I'd love to be on your show one of these days. I know you've invited me a couple times. I get nervous and I start pitting out because I never feel like I'm smart enough. But that's a
Oh
whole
my God.
thing for me and my therapist.
I know. Maybe we should do an episode about that. Why do
Okay,
you feel that way?
don't even
No.
go there.
Well, I've been asking for a long time, but we would love to have you on the show. I mean, I'm not looking for you to like give your opinion on Mother or anything, although that's interesting. But I think you have such a unique perspective that I don't think there's anybody else in journalism that has the sort of breadth and depth of experience and being a front row to history in so many different ways and so many different roles and so pivotal to the process. And I
Oh,
think for those of us that are your fans, no, I mean, and I know I'm talking to your fans because that's why they're watching this. I mean, it's really fascinating. There's nobody else that quite has your experience. So I think even just hearing you tell stories about what it was like to be in the room with Sarah Palin, or your experience with interviews with Donald Trump, or your experiences with Joe Biden when you've interviewed him over the years, and getting a sense of like what these guys are like, I think is really fascinating for all of us. I feel like I get to be the representative of the Katie Couric fan club while being on here today.
I'm writing
Yeah.
books, so I'm actually writing a lot about, really behind the scenes. I just reread the chapters we've written about Sarah Palin, and that whole interview and what it felt like behind the scenes. And, of course, I've interviewed Joe Biden a lot through the years, Barack Obama, so hopefully it'll be interesting for people. Plus, it's a very personal book. I'm talking about when my husband was diagnosed with cancer and what that was like and that whole experience. So, it's actually very therapeutic and cathartic to write a book like that about your life. So hopefully
Well,
someone and my daughters and Molnar will
well,
buy it.
I will buy it. What has been the most surprising thing when you revisit a time? Is there anything that has been kind of shocking, or you didn't quite remember that, or like, wow, I can't believe that happened, or anything like that?
I mean, kind of my whole life, honestly,
Yeah.
like what, how was I, but, I can't think of anything in particular that was super surprising. I tell you, I'm lucky that I'm a pack rat. I kept so much stuff, scripts and note cards from, the 2006 midterms that I had to do and all kinds of things. So, what's hard is really winnowing it down because I'm 63. I've had a really a surprising, unexpected life. And I was supposed to hand in 90,000 words and I handed in 259,000. And my editor was like, you think you are Winston Churchill? And I'm no, but that's very interesting. I'm kidding. But anyway,
Well, that was like, remember when Bill Clinton released his book and it was like 1,200 pages and it was called My Life, and like the joke was you weren't kidding. It's like every aspect of it. But I
anyway,
mean, there's so many chapters. We're
what?
we're all interested
Oh,
and excited
Alex,
to see it. Yeah.
I'm supposed to promote Wake Up Call. Why don't you promote Wake Up Call for me?
Well, so Katie has a great email every day that comes out called Wake Up Call, and I'm one of the many subscribers to it. It gives you a basic digest of what's happening in the news that day, some of Katie's best interviews, some of the interesting shows or other things that she's watching. It basically gives you a window of the world. There's really nothing else that you ever need to read every day other than Wake Up Call. So you
Oh,
should subscribe. It's for free, and you should check it out. And while we're doing self-promoting, you should also watch The Issue Is, which is California's only
shameless.
political show. We have a podcast called The Issue Is. Follow me at youtube.com/Alex Michaelson, or Alex Michaelson, all the different social things. And it's Alex with an E as well. And hopefully
Oh,
we
hey,
will soon have an interview with Katie Couric
yeah,
one of these days.
Couric.com and subscribe. But Alex, wait, I wanted to ask you. This is Alex Michaelson. If you're just joining us, I think some people are like, okay, well, we've had enough of these two. But if you're just joining us,
My mom's still
how,
watching. I'm sure she's very happy.
how did how did you get the name Alex instead of Alex? Can you just tell us that?
Okay, so it's a bit of a nod to my Jewish heritage on this Yom Kippur as I'm fasting. So if I said anything crazy, it's because I'm a little loopy. Uh, my mother's grandmother was named Ethel. She died about a year before I was born. My mom was very, very close with her. It was her nana. And so per Jewish tradition, where you often take the letter to honor somebody that's passed that you're close with, they turned Alexander into Alexander and sort of created a name themselves.
Oh,
So that's where Alex comes from. So it's in honor of her,
oh,
which is nice.
that's so
Yeah.
nice. You know that my mother's side of the family is Jewish, and
Oh, so then you're technically a Jew, right?
so how are you? I'm a member of the tribe, and but I was raised a Presbyterian, which is so
Yeah.
interesting. And I'm writing about that, the fact that I didn't really understand sort of culturally my mom's side of the family. I discovered it when I was 10 years old and I saw a menorah in my uncle's bookcase and I was like, wow, how did that happen? And so that's really interesting. I'm writing a lot about history. I know I've got to go. Adriana, wrap it up.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Well, next year, if you want to come over for High Holy Days, you're invited.
Thank you.
As a member of the tribe. That's
Yeah,
something I learned in this thing. I didn't know that about you, that you were a member of the tribe. So
I,
now yeah.
I am, and I'm very ecumenical because I was raised Presbyterian. My first husband was Catholic. My current husband is Jewish, and so I basically my next husband needs to be Muslim. I'm
Just
just
say that to Mulner.
I'm just kidding. Anyway, all right.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It really means a lot to me. It was really fun to have this time with you, and thank you for everything that you do. Really, thank you very, very much.
Hopefully, we'll see you soon, and let me know what you think about the debate. And shalom.
Yes. Shalom, shalom, Lashana Tova to
All right.
Mulner. Hopefully he's fasting today.
Bye. Ellen. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.